War. These skippers were very smart to bring the big catches through the viaduct. It was only 60 foot between the arches. Going across here, they was probably going to the public house, passage in. Big event in Calstock was the building of the Moonshine Chapel, and here they are blessing the foundation stones. And Mr. Reed, he was the JP for the parish and area, and also Draper, and shares in barges, and he wrote to Mr. Luke, formerly of Calstock, who made a fortune in America, and said they were intended building this chapel. So he said, well, the chapel contract price from Ross Kelly of Albassa would be £1,200. He would forward half of it if the village could raise half. So this is what they've done, and this is how the new big Mount Zion was built in Sandhill, Calstock. All the dignitaries are here. This is the local MP there in the centre there, with the light coloured hat, and Mr. Bickle, the organist, and chapel man. With the bowler hat. Laying a tea out here for the ceremony at the top. This is 909. And you can see Taylor View, the terrace there opposite. Mr. Reed, who died suddenly. Then we moved over to the old Mount Zion, and the United Reformed Church was, and this is the Jubilee, the foundation stone laid. You see there, it took about 6 months to build. Screw room built 1862. Mr. Baker, the contractor, and there's WB on some big houses in Calstock, the builder, so no doubt it was the same family. Classroom built, Mr. Warren, £84, 1892, and this building, the classroom, has been sold on now to the Cornwall County Council. They were going to extend the school there for 40,000. And then they decided not to use that area for the school, and built the extension on the school at the school itself. So now it's for sale again.
Yeah.
That's our original chapel.
But they had this the Methodist chapel down the hill a bit.
Yeah.
George said they hadn't seen them standing with a basket of bread in his arm. You know, Florrie, he said, they'll say, what great mansion's that?
Yeah, well, there's a big one right in the hill.
Yeah.
What about your Baptist man, as he called, Alfred Pengelly?
Oh yeah, I know the very well. He was all chapel preach.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice chap, tall chap, wasn't he?
Lovely chap.
Yeah.
And his wife was lovely. I was called Williams.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Mother and all of them, when they used to go bells to preach, Mother used to say, oh, is this one, is that one? Oh, no, what it's like when you've left a place a long time.
The grand opening of the Mount Zion in 1911, and the little girl you see on the left-hand side in her mother's arms up on the wall is Marjorie Vickery today, but she was young Marjorie Phelp, and she's now 86 years old. Boys are up the elm trees. These were cut down in the 60s. And here we have George Bickle the baker playing the organ. This new organ was paid for partly by the Carnegie Foundation. Great upheaval was the First World War, and on the extreme right there is Fred Carter, 17, just 18 years of age, at the Regiment Barracks, Devonport, Devonshire Regiment. So Jim's a young man now, First World War, and like Fred Carter, he's been called up. The ones in the latter stages of the war were called up. In the early stages of the war they volunteered, but they weren't so keen by the end of the war. Another young man, Con Cork, second from the left, the Staffordshire Regiment. So here's Con. Brother, he wasn't so lucky, his younger brother. So he's out here in Flanders. Ladies, Con's young lady, and she's was the rope maker's daughter. So in 1900.
He was R.E. and he was running ammunition boats from Dover to Calais and right up to the canals near the battle zones that he could get.
Yeah, oh yes.
And full of ammunition.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying the Battle of the Somme, that's why I'm interested in all the battles, because you know Flo Francis.
Yes.
Well, our mother lost her first husband 3 years to the very day was married in the Battle of the Somme.
Yes.
He was a lovely man.
And what was he called then?
A fox.
Oh yes.
And he was, he worked in Plymouth for the Three Towns Dairy.
Oh yes.
He was a lovely man.
Yeah.
And he had 2 legs and arm blood off in Ypres. He died in Ypres Hospital. And Aunt Rose always sent money every year for the cemetery, for our graves to be done up. And I always remember saying to me, because me and her went a trip every year, when Lynn Babbage and all of us, we'd go to Niles or I'd always take a day off from work.
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a lovely time. And I always said, Doss, one day we'll go over to Ypres and see Uncle Arthur's grave, and of course she died.
Yeah.
Around 1918, and that is Mr. Cork there, the man you see on the right hand side, the bowed-in head. And down in front, the lady we see there with the baby on her lap, it's Mrs. Williams, and she has her young son there, Stuart. So there's one thing that's very absent in this picture, if you notice. There's no young men. It's all young women and children, and older men and women. The man we see in the middle there with a moustache, it's Bowden, Sid Bowden the draper. His brother next to him. These are up at the island up at Weirhead, gone up on the Empress. We see in the centre there the 2 small children. It's Mrs. Stubben. It's probably George and Fred. In her arms, you just see the head of one and the whole head of the other part of the head. At the back there, on top of the pitch here on the left hand side. The naval man, there's Mr. Trewethen on leave. And the man with the moustache there, holding head, round face, was the chemist in Calstock. You see in the back with the trophy hat and his hand across his chest, Mr. Bickle, George Bickle the baker, superintendent of the new Methodist chapel. Before now, this is the sports team, Calstock School. Right, Stan Ponton next to him. I think some are growing out of their jerseys. Fletcher and Bill Chapman. Harold Fletcher's holding the cup. Around about the 20s and revived now, and they go around the village around the Christmas time, and around the pubs, playing their musical instruments with their faces darkened. Here they are in the 1920s. Very wet. Wonderful activities in Calstock these days with the new citizens. Revitalize village. Children of the 1920s at Calstock School. It's like Graham Gary, little boy in the white up, second row up, next to the dark girl. Barbara Hopkins. There's Ken Worth there, front. Douglas Colby on the far left in the front row. Edna Gary with a little ribbon in her hair. Mervyn Studden, a little boy there with a curly hair. Second row. This was Barbara Hopkins. And one of the Gary girls, the dark one. Along now, it's Gary girl, and it's like Graham Gary. Bill Hopkins. Two more little boys on the end. There's young Reed, Herbie, little boy with the dark hair with a fringe, and his dad died young and he was sent off to school in the Greenwich, the Naval School, Orphan School, and he made a career in the Navy. Miss Risden was the teacher. That's young Hickman, Claudia Hickman, little boy there in the front, with the tie in the front row, second in from the right. There's the headmaster's daughter, May Reynolds, and the little boy in the front is Ken Davy and Douglas Davy, the two young Davy boys, about 12 months difference in their age. Young Lucas sitting on the chair. Stevie Gary in the top, the tallest boy. The little boy in the back row with his hands crossed there, hold his fingers, is Cecil Studden. So they are at Calstock School in the 20s. Now we have another one. This one is a little older than the other one. That's Freddie and Cecil Studden, two little boys. There's Barbara Hopkins, little girl there holding her hands together. And Graham Gary, Miss Risden. Claudia up in the back. Treby Start next to him. Boy there. Stuart Williams, little boy there in the dark. Next to him is Cecil Studden. And the big boy is Ken Worth. And that is Miss Preston, Adelaide Preston, who married John Brown later. She is a student teacher here. Calstock 4th Street in the 30s is how I knew it. See no cars. George Craddock was very tiny, Austin 7. See about. There are all the shops. Here's the Methodist Sunday School. This is up at the council school. A photograph was taken up there, and I suppose there was nowhere else to take it. So the Studden boy on the left here, on the front, the apron on. So they're all dressed up, this fancy dress. Mr. Pickle, superintendent of the chapel there at the background. The young man there with his hair and the tie, it's Bill Chapman. They were greatly involved with the chapel all his life. His sister there, Mrs. Baisley, Reg Studden, Trevethan, the boy with the tie, Myrtle Studden with the plaits, Mad Eye Studden's daughter. Edgar Ekman, boy with the tie there, Lucas, Georgie Studden, and Cecil Studden, another one with an apron. Trevethan, I think it is with another one with an apron there. Young Kobe. The council school bill runners was this photograph. Quite an active Sunday school. These are tennis players. They used to play tennis on the Devon side. There's Miss Soper on the left there, and one of the Corks. Vera Stacey with a tennis racket. I think it was another one, was Mrs. Green. There they are again, the 4 tennis players. After they built the viaduct, there was a large piece of cement when they made the blocks on, and that was big enough for a tennis court. They played their tennis there. On the left, Jack Cox, the front row, and Will Sanders at the back. And it on the left-hand side. So Upward, the local doctor, who lived at Appletree House. Later he had a car that was chauffeured around by Miss Studden, Myrtle.
That's when I had diphtheria.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you who died. Dick Preston's little boy, that's his little boy, Don.
Yeah.
I was down that class. I had to play and I was breastfeeding Margaret. And went right through the house. My mother took away the children well, and her Aunt Rose home from Ireland had lost her second husband with Flo. And that poor little boy, I hadn't seen sitting down. I lived up over sit down shop then.
Yeah.
And I can see Hazel and Eve and Margaret, little baby maid. I was breastfeeding her. And yeah, the village pump people in. Fresh water be coming out all day long.
Yeah, down of it, yeah.
Because in the back was a sewer.
Yeah.
Buckets, 6:30 in the morning. Emptying the buckets because no toilets.
No, you only had, you had a toilet.
Well, no toilets, some of them had them in the garden, some didn't.
No, some never had a garden, did
No, and so you see all the women, 6:30 in the morning, come down and there's a bucket.
I think one of them, somebody, Shabby used to open up the...
That's right. And Shoppy was an uplighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, dear old Shoppy was an uplighter.
We did one time something to do with the vessels or steamers or something.
I heard that when I was a boy.
Come jammed in between the jetty or something.
But I suppose the shop lost all his hair as well.
Lost there as well, you know. But there was some group.
Because he must have had that one when he lost his leg and lost his hair.
Yeah.
And he only had an Asian and a few strands hanging out the back. It was the Asian.
But I remember that they had a football match one time for the getting a new wig.
Oh.
That, you know, not like they are today.
No.
Just straight.
Yeah.
Well, fit with a touch.
Yeah.
Was to say 7 or 8 oil lamps dotted around the village.
And who used to look after them then?
That was the work of Mr. Charles Choplin.
Oh yes, the card of the village.
Remember?
Yes, the card of the village with his one leg
and
an elephant's sort of foot, wasn't it?
he had a
I just remember now.
cord leg.
That's right, and a dewdrop on the end of his nose.
But
Because he never had no...
Forgetting that.
Yeah, oh yes. I remember sweeping the roads in the war and that, you know.
I mean, for a man like that, he'd walk every Sunday, he'd walk up at church twice to do bell ringing, mornings and evenings.
Yeah, it's pity we haven't got any photos of him, really.
Yes.
The brother, well, there's only one left in that family, and that's Jim Hopkins, Jim Hopkins up London.
Yeah.
He's the only one left.
Yeah. Whether the daughter, Barbara's
made that any photos, I don't know.
I'll ask her when I see her.
But he was a character.
He was, yes, and he used to do the funerals as well, didn't he?
He was what they call a caller.
Yeah.
Front 6 out.
Front 6 out, is that what he used to shout?
Yeah, front 6 out. Jenny used to try to arrange the funerals for weekends when all the male of the village were on the 2 lines, and then he'd shout out the front 6, they would fall out, and when the chest got up to there, they take over and they drop in behind.
Oh yes.
Well,
I suppose every other man or woman was short of the distance they
that's
walked.
right, he'd work it out, he'd do the pacing.
Oh yes.
And he'd walk that hill then without a stick.
Yes, marvellous, isn't it?
It is, really.
Lewis Rowe, around 1900, with young Miss Mullen, with her daughter, Ruth Wedlock. And up, looks like he's up at Kelly Villas, one of the big houses up there with his horse and cart. I remember him quite well, holding the call from my father's nursery, from the station to the nursery, with his horse and cart. He is outside Tom Adams's new house early in 1930. There's Tom Adams, and there's old Lewis Rowe and Mrs. Adams, Mrs. Watts, the butcher's wife, Dorcas Rowe, and Doris Francis. And the bungalow behind was Ed Bennett's new bungalow, built about the same time. That bungalow now was built for under £200, and now they're looking at 82,000. Around late 20s, early 30s. Mr. and Mrs. Mullen, and Mr. Mullen's wife was a geek, and the 4 daughters. And this is Mr. Mullen's daughter here, Ethel, marrying Mr. Barrett of the farm at the Devon side. And Ethel worked in the post office for a great number of years. So this is Ethel's wedding day, I should think around 1930. Young woman, Mr. and Mrs. Luscombe, up at the school. I can't imagine what this was. Here we have the monument that Jimmy Paul built when he said he was done out of the Aylward estate. This is in the 30s, and the solicitors for closed, and they also done this to the Jarvises that was in Aylward. The Trelawneys of Aylwards, this is their large headstone, 1859, on the eastern side of the church. And that monument, as you see, was outside the church, and this used to be the main drive to Harewood House. And this is the area that was sold in 1916. Ferry Farm to the Jarvises, and Harewood, and the farm around Harewood to James Paul of Calstock. Here we have the view, and then we're going on down to towards Harewood House. And these are all the big beech trees that had his initials tarred on in the 30s. And this was the entrance too. And this entrance, there's the old Harewood House, and it was only a ruin at that time. These were rather dilapidated back in the 30s.
I was told with Jim Paul's surplus from the First World War.
He had it on the keys as well, didn't he? When all the keys it was then.
Wire ropes, hundreds of wheels that old Mr. Pooley used to live down on it. He used to be out there knocking them abroad for the hub. There was some metal in the hub.
Oh yeah.
And gun carriages, right around Denver Dockyard. See, they used to have a sale, and he'd go down and buy it and bring it up on the barge. And I've been chased many a time out there with James Paul.
Oh yeah.
You better him, boys.
So he had the Harewood estate, didn't he? And then he owned that, the keys and that come in with it, I suppose.
That's right. Well, right out around Harewood estate.
Yeah, and come right into the wall there where the riverside is, right through there, wasn't it? As far as that then.
Where the riverside wall was, that was the stables right up and down there.
Oh yeah.
We'd have about a dozen horses. Well, I was a bit young, but those bit older than me, they'd be down there right in to get a horse to ride up here. They'd be down there right in to catch a horse.
Yeah. So he was a wealthy man to start with then.
Oh yes. See,
I remember that when he put the memorial up.
Yeah, well, the lower side of Harewood Road down to the railway fencing.
Yeah.
Mr. Tom Bowie up Old Basson was claiming it.
Oh yeah.
And he went to London on a court case and got knocked down by a taxi and got killed.
Oh dear.
So he never knew how it actually happened. He owned that ground, really.
No.
It never been said he owned it.
No, I remember him building the, when he bowled out, I remember that when I was a little boy, he was watching building his monument.
He's hobby, well, he used to have a trotting pony, Calstock S.E.
Oh yes.
And the big shows then was at Lidford.
Yeah.
And if he won out Lidford, look out.
Oh yeah.
Hats.
Yeah.
I can see the pony now, silver grey.
Yeah.
He'd have him down on the quay just trotting around,
Yeah.
Proper little racing track, cart.
Yes.
Oh,
outside where the post office is now.
Oh, yeah.
And they were down there one Sunday morning playing that. And that's all the gang and Henry James and all the young stuff. And they had all the cards and the money in the middle and on the pool and what they. When down comes Solomon, the policeman. And Solomon said, aye, I've got you lads. And Henry said to him, looked up to him and he said, well, that's looking a hell of a mess here, Solomon, innit? And he went over and he picked up all the money and put it in his pocket and walked off with it. And Solomon couldn't do nothing about it. All he could do was he had to do a grin to himself and turn his back and walk away again. But he said they weren't harming anybody at all. What they were just one way past the way the time.
Yeah, it was terrible like that. We were down similar when I was a young man. We were down in the playing field in under the shed playing Appreciate Me.
That's right.
And the police arrived. You think we'd done a terrible crime.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that more than 6 months involved.
Oh, I remember the time when Jimmy Paul had the playing field that there is now, and there was great big stores out there then, great big 2-story.
Yeah, but I remember that one that was pulled down, wasn't it? In the 30s.
They were pulled down, and he used to go down the dockyard and buy up all ex-government stuff and bring it up and store it there and sell it again and sometime or other.
Sell it on, yeah.
And there was a time when some of the lads in the village got that they used to go down and rook their place. They'd have lookouts at all the corners with flashlights, flashing if anybody was coming. They used to be chucking out blankets and boxes of tools out of the loft and all that sort of thing, you know. But nothing never came of it. There was nobody was never sent to jail or nothing like that.
Well, the quay was full of old irons and all the old boats and stuff on the quay.
There was an old chassis of an old rail truck or something there for years that the men used to sit on that one.
Yeah, after the stuff went.
Yeah. They used to sit there for years and years before the seats eventually got there. But
then that monument he built up by the church.
Oh, up by the church he built that one, yeah. Well, that one, I forget the weight of that one. I was full of blacksmith's anvils and...
Was it?
Oh, yeah.
I remember him wheeling the concrete, you know, and he used to wear like a shirt with stripes on, you know, a thick flannelette shirt and a bowler hat.
Always wore a bowler hat.
And he was wheeling the concrete when I was a boy, as we were quite, you know, thrilled to see him making this, when he had a big plate on the top and a couple of shells looking down outward.
That's right, he had shells pointing out of it.
Yes, right.
And to finish up with, eventually, after years went by and they kept on about this thing, they dug a great pit one side of it, you know, and had chains and that and tractor and pulled it over.
Was that what happened?
Yeah, in this pit.
Why he got knocked out, you know, why they kept it there? Because he was massive, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, massive it was. It was there for years.
Yeah.
And then he had the old, what's the name of walking out Airwood, and he had all the trees out there tarred with his initials on them.
I remember.
On the what's name of the...
He said he was done out of the Airwood estate, didn't he, by the sisters?
Jimmy Paul, yeah, Jimmy Paul. I always remember at the time when he was, he had to clear out the bailiffs or whatever it was, I forget, stuck in, and they come down with lorries and they loaded up a lot of his stuff and they were going up the hill with it. And with Jack Brown's garden working at the time, and I said to, what's them, I forget who I was working with then, I said, what the devil's on there? Some rattle coming up the hill, somebody shouting, and got up on the edge and looked out over. This was these lorries coming up, and Jimmy Paul was up in the back, and he was throwing the stuff off as fast as he could throw it, and saying, Bally hell, it's my stuff, don't belong to you. And they got up as far as Martin's garage, up the top of the hill with the lorry, and the driver stopped, and he phoned through to Tavistock, to the police, to say they had a madman on the back of the lorry, throwing all the stuff off all the way. And by the time they got in Tavistock, the police arrested poor old Jimmy. Yeah. I
can remember him when I was coming home from school once outside Foster's. Mr. and Mrs. Foster was inside the shop,
Yeah,
and Jimmy was outside shouting and raving. I can remember that.
yeah,
Went
yeah.
home from school as a little boy.
Oh yes, he used to, he used to employ several men
Oh, yeah.
at that time with the farm and
Yeah.
another. My wife's father worked for Jimmy for years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, with the cattle, with the
Yeah, he had the Airwood farm, and he had the Airwood estate.
Yeah, with the estate, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how he got in control of the keys then.
That's right.
Because they must have belonged to the Airwood estate
Yeah,
originally.
all of it.
School in 1933, and this you can see by the children was much the poorest time of the much poorer these children than they were dressed than they were in the 20s. That was Derek Rowe on the right and Roy Collins. It's Ronnie Lawson, Jack Goss, Philip Jarvis. His mother said that one week she had 1 and 8pence and a bag of spuds, that's all they had. Mick Babbage. The blurred picture there is Howard Gary. His father worked for the factory, sewing wood. Ken Collins there on the left, whose father was a tailor. Kobe. Richard one. This one here is Wilton. The little girl down the right that seemed to have something shaved off her head, and was probably she had lice or something. There was, in this time there was no water in Calstock, no mains water. There's Bob Carter, Vanstone, Kane, Ronnie Williams, and the toilets were only bucket toilets or just flushing down into open drain. That's all we had at school was an open aft channel, and it used to be flushed once a day. That's Teddy Martin, Hickman, Rita, Hazel Jarvis and Betty Martin. That's Sheila Watts there. Lily Cubby was the first one in the line. So you can see they were very poor here in the 30s. No work whatsoever. Farms, more or less, people were working on the land and the farms, and that more or less packed up. As you see, the solicitors were foreclosing properties. A lot of the gardens, all the gardens around Calstock was bought off in small plots in the Airwood estate sale in 1916. So there's Billy Jarvis. 1 and 8pence for the week, his mum. Bob Carter, Roy Collins. Roy's father was in the Navy. Young Derek Rowe there. You notice they all wearing boots. We used to put in Blakey's, Scoots and Blakey's. Couldn't afford to keep on adding. There's Bill with his socks rolled down, old boots on. Young Babbage, his dad was in the Navy. And some one boy who can't even afford a pair of boots, he's got rubber boots. There's Horace Wilton there, alongside of Norman Preston. Prestons were very well off. Ted Martin, he was like the rest of us, had nothing. Mick Babbage, his father said was in the Navy. Aycroft, he was down and out as well. Reggie Martin, we were all in the same boat. Weren't very rich and very poor, they were all poor. Now we're looking at young Vanstone. He passed the scholarship in them days. So did Jackie Gross, and lad there. And you took a preliminary examination,
and if you pass that, you were put forward for the scholarship. The scholarship consisted of 5 places at the secondary school at Callington for the whole Callington catchment area, so it was a very rare thing for anybody to pass this scholarship. And then you had to find your own money for books and transport to Kellybray Callington Station, and a mile and a half walk to the secondary school, which is now the junior school at Callington. It's up in Saltash Road. It had about 200 students. So my sister passed, and so did Alan Preston, and that was the first time two had ever passed to go to the secondary school, or more or less a grammar school, and so that was the first time ever. But the Vanstones, he passed, and his father was a large family, and they had no money, and the village collected for a satchel for him and books, and went towards his train fare.
Okay. Yank Studden with a cigarette, Calstock. Race Langsford with the cap on. On the extreme right here, just coming is Dickie Martin of Calstock. Len Philp, but he's in his Sunday best, so he's not working here. Just getting into the picture. Stan Langsford, he was the boss fisherman at Cotehele, and all the fish went into his how he distributed the fish. He lived on the quay, and he lived in where the Edgecombe Arms is today, in the bottom flat. Nelson's lived over the top. Norman there. Here they are on the quay in the 30s, in the Depression, very tough times. Little or no money, no welfare state. Of the full group. And this is how they do it. They come out and go 2/3 the way over the river and drop in the net behind them and fasten the ends, and then they gradually throw it in from both ends to the shore, whichever any fish in the net they've got, but I'm afraid they only seem to strain water these days. This is the way it's done, and this will soon be a thing of the past. Here we have a group of fishermen showing off their catch. Quay, Calstock Swimming Club, run by Eric Pengelly, son of Alfie Pengelly. And the young chap on the bottom there is Tony Griffiths, who lost his life in the Second World War as pilot. Sid Borden, Arthur Cork, Russell Taylor, and that's Horace Wilton. So I go back to these again: Horace Taylor, Arthur Cork, Sid Borden, Tony Griffiths. Tony survived the war as a prisoner of war, shot down over France, but was killed soon after the war in a Phantom twin-boom jet. And this is another gentleman, Stacey Mervyn, who was lost in the war, and a bomber presumed killed. So there's Mervyn, and then there's Reed, Herbie Reed. That was Norman Southey, Douglas Davy, Herbie Reed, and Mervyn. Stacey, his nickname was Pilchy because he was such a strong swimmer. And one day Con Cork was out swimming, and he was a very strong swimmer. You notice, and in the end they could see there was trouble, and Pilchy there swam out and saved him. You see the slide belonging to the swimming club there on the side. When the tide was rising, because the sewage outfall was just a little way up the river from here. Bennett family in the 30s on holiday party, because Ed Bennett's only son Roy now was ill with pneumonia. And here you see the water supply pump down at Lure. This is some straw for Pengelly, the gentleman who wrote the book on Calstock. It was his two granddaughters. Ed Bennett with his son Roy in the glass house. Barbara Cork, you're at the Baptist Chapel in the 30s, but sadly he only lived 12 months after this. He died of pneumonia. And here we have strawberries being loaded on Gunnar Hawkins' trap to take to the station. Right at the weir, that's what the Duke of Bedford had put here for fishing. Long since gone. This was formed in Calstock in 1933. The other members. In the old Tuck H room, long since gone. Oh, it was in full flight in the 30s. Clara Brown, Jim Milton out here on the Denscombe slopes. Danicum to the locals, picking daffs. Now there's literally thousands upon thousands of boxes of flowers grown here in the valleys of around the Calstock, Harewood and through around the Calstock itself, Kelly Springs and out here on the Danicum. The hills were suited for it because they had a niche of their own. They were just behind the Scillies and before the Channel Islands. And here's Jim with his bunches of flowers under his arm. These were bunched up, 12 in a bunch, and 2.5 dozen bunches to a box. In full bloom, that is the Denscombe Valley, as it was then. Now it's woodland.
When George Craddock, at that time, he said to me, "You're getting more money than you are, boy." He said, "Now we're getting a pound, 21 shillings a week." He said, "You're worth more than that." So anyway, I asked Eric for more money, and instead of getting more money, I had the sack. He said, "You can take a week's notice and go." So anyhow, I was lucky enough to get out Dick Preston's at the time, out Higher Kelly, when he had all the flower gardens and that. But trouble was out there, you were only on for the summer months. When it come about October, you were finished. And then you were out of work until about the following February or March. And you couldn't get any dough or nothing at that time. You were on your beam ends. You were.
Dick Preston on the right, young Maunder, one of his workers, Red Studden, young Horace Wilton, and old Grandfather Nelson in the twilight of his life here. And they've got Dick's flowers here. Going to the packing houses. These packing houses were all over the valley, old galvanised sheds. Had a tortoise stove and shelves all around inside, and they put the flowers in buckets of water, small amount of water on the bottom, and brought them all in the heat in the houses or the markets. So this is how the flowers were prepared in the valley. All boxed up, ready for the station. This is the Starps Gardens. These were taken into the station, and there was the wagons for the flowers, and they had labels on the side, Birmingham, Sheffield, wherever, and they were weighed, and you put them in the wagons, and they were delivered next morning in the markets, London, wherever. This is Mrs. Stark, her new bungalow they built in the 30s, Paramount. Now gone, it was taken down a few years back, and a new bungalow put further back. And here's one of the first cars in Calstock. This is the Stark, old Mr. Stark there on the right, and his son. Acres and acres. So you can quite imagine how many flowers were going into the station. And then in around June, this was in the spring, February, March, and in June the strawberries used to come in. Here is the data screen now, today, with just a few flowers growing amongst the south-sown woodland. So there we are, the Denniscreen Valley in the 90s. Right in, look, one of these packing houses I was talking about. Unbelievable, this valley now. And this gentleman here we see is Charles Shotland, the character of the village, the one-legged man with no heir. And here he is up harvesting for Mr. Cox, Norman Cox, the farmer. There was no, as I said, there was no dough or anything like that, so there was no money you could get from the state, so you work for everything to keep. And there's Joe walking next to him, and there's Norman up on the top of the rick. So here he is, the only photograph I've ever seen of Charles Shotland, with Joe walking next to him. Joe walking was in the part one in the cofferdam, the building the viaduct. The pontoon there, the barge off the pontoon, the Myrtle, Mad Studden's barge. This is the early 30s. In 1934 they took the lift down, so the lift's still on the viaduct. Trade is absolutely dead now on the timer. Sir Luscombe on the left, Mr. Blake. No Luscombes or Blakes in Calstock these days. Down here, up at Teignmouth. Sunday school trip. We all waited for these Sunday school trips. This was the only way you got out of the village, and we went to the seaside by train, special trains from Calstock Station. And there's Hazel Jarvis on the left, Bob Carter, myself, Roy Collins, and Bill Jarvis. I remember nothing about this, so I must have gone with the Jarvis and Collins family on this outing. So here we all are up at Teignmouth. Back here, looks like they're down in Freddie Jury's yard. They got their face blackened, so this must be another set of darkies. They've got the banjo at the back there. Later than the other ones we saw. Ruth Jury, the youngest daughter of Fred Jury, the coalman, and his wife was a Nielsen, and with a brother Lane here. He's got the same old motorbike with the carbon lamps. You can see how narrow the quay is along this point. That's the warehouse there. Jim Stacey used to keep a lot of fowls in there in the 40s. And you can see Jack Wilcox's old barge there on the right hand side, which used to get dock dung and leaf mould, bring it up to Calstock for putting on the gardens. Well, this is Steamer's Quay. Here we have the most interesting picture. This is on the right. You see the yacht there in the dock. That was Captain Bessifer's yacht, and he used to live there with his seamen. Young seamen aboard, and once a year he took all the children of Calstock, that's the ones whose mothers would let them go up to the island at Weirhead and stop there on the island, and they used to put pasties aboard, and Bert Studden used to supply, and Bickles, George Bickles, all the fancy cakes. It's once a year trip in the summer when the school holidays were on, and we all went up to Weirhead. Yacht was put on what was the world scene in the war because a young lady left her husband, who was in the merchant navy, with 2 children, and came and set up home on this yacht with Mumsy Wilton. He had the yacht then during the war years, and it got into the News of the World, so you couldn't buy a News of the World in Calstock that Sunday. Said how that she'd left her husband, who was bringing the food into Britain to live on a luxury yacht. She left him to live on a luxury yacht on the Tamer. So this is that luxury yacht you see what we saw on the right there. Grounded on the mud in the dock. And that's young Kathleen Jury with her dogs there on the quay. The new toilets there we see, and this is the old chassis that was left here on the quay. This was covered in old irons of Jimmy Paul's when he moved out of the playing field. They put out here, some of it is old rubbish, and this old chassis was left here and people sat on it for a great number of years until he put seats there. So Calstock Quay in the 30s. Young Ruth Jury on the right, youngest daughter, and I don't know who the other two girls are, but this is looking up to Shoppy's front door here in Princess Square. And here's a couple on the motorbike. This is the old lorry of Mr. Jury's, one of these first coal lorries here stuck, and there's Mr. Jury on the motorbike. In Commercial Road with his little terrier dog down towards Pickles Bakery, baker's shop there. You can see all the nice railings around. There's no railings now, hasn't altered, but there's no railings. George Pickles on the corner there, shop, baker's shop. 30s, Henry Barrett, Ken Davey, Alex Fletcher. What's there? That Lou with his wife there, he's got the tea on the tray. Young Doreen Start and young Joan Watts with a cup of tea. So they're all down enjoying herself, our local butcher and his family. Tennis Club Cup. This one is in possession of Claude Hickman. And that lives at Tavistock. It's one outright by him. So here's that cup of the 30s. Stuart Williams. We saw him as a little boy with his mother's arms and at school, about a 6-year-old. And here he is when he's won the cup in 1932 to 1933. And after Stuart, Claude Hickman won it. As you see, 33, 34, and 34 to 35, 35 to 36, and 36 to 37. And by this time the war was nearing, and Marjorie Paul then became Mrs. Deacon.